Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, this is the bill that we have in reference to Planned Parenthood selling body parts, and that's the impetus for this bill. Beyond that, it prohibits anyone from selling body tissues and body parts from aborted fetuses. It does not affect in any way a spontaneous abortion or a miscarriage. And I'd ask for your support of the bill.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Nash, Representative Collins, rise?
To debate the bill.
Gentleman has the floor to debate the conference or the motion to concur.
Thank you. I've been here for 5 years, and we've had a lot of bills that are similar to this. I've never spoken on any of them. I've sat and listened and listened and listened, and I've listened until I've about listened out. So I'm going to speak this time. I noticed that one of our first speakers claimed that if a tape is edited or heavily edited, that that's equal to being false. I would say if that's the case, then every news story I've ever seen about the General Assembly on Channel 5 or Channel 11 or any of the rest of them is patently false, because they're all very heavily edited. I also noticed that when she was offered some evidence that these things are indeed not false, she did what any good person without the truth on their side does. No, I don't want to see the evidence. There's no denying this is going on in the United States. It may not have happened in North Carolina. I hope it never does happen in North Carolina. That's the whole purpose of this bill. Another representative mentions a former senator, a former U.S. senator on stem cell research. If you notice, the word fetal was never used in that speech. That's because 90% of the progress that's been made in stem cell research has been made with adult stem cell research, not fetal stem cell research, although there's a portion of our country that wants to continue to push that. It was also basically said that we can't have teen pregnancy reduction if we don't have a group doing it that also provides abortion. That's not true. I volunteer back home with a group that's very good at offering teen prevention services and doesn't provide abortions. I've been amazed that through the years, we've had people who say that we all agree that abortion should be safe and infrequent but available, can't bring themselves to vote for bills that would, for instance, make abortion clinics have the same safety and emergency features that every other outpatient clinic has in this state, therefore providing women with a safe alternative. Some can't even bring themselves to vote against something which mandates against the sale of body parts. It's incredible to me. We make certain statements, but then we don't back it up when the vote comes. As far as defunding Planned Parenthood, it's not surprising to me the things they're doing. It's not surprising to me the body part sales they're doing. Now, this is an organization that was founded by a woman who was a preacher of eugenics and a great admirer of the Nazi attempt to create a master race. So anything they do doesn't surprise me. I would advise you to vote for this conference report. Thank you.
Representative McElraft, rise.
To speak on the bill.
Lady has the floor to debate the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I've sat here, I wasn't going to say anything, but I hope all of you were as sickened as I was when you saw the first videos before they were banned. They may have been altered as far as being edited because they were too long to show. But what I saw with my eyes and what I heard with my ears was not altered. It's coming exactly from a member of Planned Parenthood and their staff. They were talking about, it's a little boy. Get it while the heart's beating. Get it as fast as you can. Excuse me, is that what we want in North Carolina if it's not already here? Absolutely not. I found out 3 months ago that my husband has Parkinson's. Would I ever want someone to sell the part of a baby? Yes, it's a baby. To someone for research so that they can help my husband with Parkinson's? Absolutely not. There are adult stem cells that can be used. Embryonic cord cells that can be used. Why don't we let the baby be born and we can have all kinds of stem cells, embryonic stem cells, from the cord blood? It's been proven that they work just as well. I'm sickened by it. And I can't believe anyone would vote to allow this to happen in North Carolina. And excuse me about the situation with giving birth control in the same facility. How do you distinguish what's taxpayer money and what's not taxpayer money when you pay the rent? Or when you rent out part of your building to a tissue bank person that's going to get those tissues as soon as they're available, as soon as you cut the parts off, as soon as it's available. You know, we went from doing saline abortions, where the baby was born sometimes alive and smothered in the saline. And I witnessed that myself in the 70s. To doing suction abortion where you pull the baby apart so you don't see it's a real baby. And now we've gone back to full parts so we can sell them. I'm disgusted, and I hope you'll vote for this bill because you're just as disgusted as I am.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Craven, Representative Speciale, rise?
To speak on the bill.
The gentleman has the floor to debate the bill.
God, this just rips at my heart. I have to agree with the previous speaker that, we shouldn't have to have this on the floor here. We never should have gotten in a position in this country, in the United States of America, where life is sanctioned in our founding documents. We never should have gotten in a position where we have to pass a bill to keep from selling body parts. We can call it fetal tissue, we can call it all kinds of things, but the bottom line is we're talking about a baby. We're talking about a human being. We're talking about legs and arms and brains and my God, how did we get here? How did we get so calloused that this doesn't matter? It just tears my heart out that we even have to discuss this. I've got twin grandsons that were born months premature. They were 26 weeks. One of them weighed 1 pound 3 ounces. The other weighed 1 pound 6 ounces. And I worried night and day for weeks and whether they were going to make it. I'm proud that they're happy 6-year-old boys. But my God, I couldn't even think of selling their body parts. They were the smallest human beings I'd ever seen. Some people would have still referred to them as fetuses, and it disgusts me. I don't understand how anybody with any feeling could oppose this bill. This bill, end marketing and sale of unborn children's body parts. My God. Support the bill and let's move on, because this is ripping our hearts even having to listen to this conversation.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Pitt, Representative Brown, rise?
To speak on the bill.
The gentleman has the floor to debate the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I don't rise in this chamber very often. In fact, I try to keep it to an absolute minimum. I try to save my comments for committee and caucus. However, today, that changes. I've been compelled on my heart to have this conversation. And I'm not quite sure where to start, and I hope you bear with me for just a moment. It's been said time and time again that this is not occurring in North Carolina. And I will just reiterate the point that if it is in fact not occurring in North Carolina, then this bill should have no effect on your ability to vote yes for it. Well, let me say this, and let me tell you a story. A representative stood up just a moment ago and talked about the young men of teenage pregnancies. I'm going to tell you a story about myself. I don't know my father. Never met the man until I was 22 years old, and that was enough for me. My father, when my young mother got pregnant, wanted her to have an abortion, sent her money to have an abortion, went to court and said, I want her to have an abortion under oath. And my mother actually thought about having that abortion. And instead of going to that abortion clinic, she went to a place where they talked about preventive measures, and they talked about the what now. That's what we can fund. That's the opportunity we have as well in this bill, is to fund organizations like the Carolina Pregnancy Center, where they talk about preventative measures, but they also talk about the what now. Members, I stand before you today not thinking I'm going to change a single mind. But here's what I will say to you and what I will press upon you. I stand before you today as a husband, a father of 3, an entrepreneur, a state representative, and I'm 35 years old. My mother made a choice to ensure that I had that opportunity. How many more folks just like me have lost that opportunity? Please vote yes on this bill.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Cabarrus, Representative Pittman, rise?
Speak on the report.
The gentleman has the floor to debate the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a little different perspective on this, maybe unique among this body. It's easy for us a lot of times to talk about things like this in rather academic, pristine terms, talk about fetal tissue and that sort of thing. I can't have it be just academic with me because, you see, as member of the Advisory Board of Action League for Life in Charlotte in the late 80s and early 90s, it's part of a group that, I'll say it was not Planned Parenthood, but we raided the dumpster at an abortion mill over 5 nights in 1992 and retrieved the remains of 128 babies from that dumpster. God bless Belmont Abbey College for giving them decent burial. It's not just an academic thing or anything pristine about it. When you've held that in your hands, I mean, most of them were the consistency of hamburger, but there were identifiable body parts, little stomachs and lungs, arms with scapula attached, and things like that. And when you've held that in your hands, as I did, you know that whatever the reason was for this, there's nothing that can ever excuse it. And we're talking now about selling that for profit. You know, I've seen those videos. There's bargaining going on. Let's raise the price. Oh, I want a Lamborghini or something. So what price do I put on morality? What price do I put on human life so I can have my Lamborghini? The very idea of saying that Planned Parenthood, in particular, since that name has been raised, would want to reduce the number of abortions is ludicrous. It's like saying that the local baker is going to go around asking people not to eat bread. When it's what you make your money on, you're not going to try to get that stopped. You're not going to try to reduce it. You're going to try to produce more of it. And so you give out contraceptives that don't work. Contraceptives that you know are going to fail to produce more business. And that's what's going on. But the sale of these body parts, I liken to something that happened in New Bern actually before I was even born. There was a very nice German family who lived in New Bern who received a gift from friends in Germany, a lamp with a lampshade that they quickly disposed of when they realized that the lampshade was made of Jewish skin. There is no difference between what was done there and what people are doing now in selling these little human beings' body parts for profit. No difference at all. It is ghoulish. And, it's like saying, well, we shouldn't bother about what the Nazis did in the concentration camps because they kept the trains running on time. You think they do something good, and so you're going to tolerate the murder that they make most of their money off of. This is ghoulish, and it needs to be stopped, and we should not be given one dime to anybody that's participating in it. And I don't doubt for one moment that people who've talked to Planned Parenthood folks have heard from them, no, we're not doing that in North Carolina. It may be so, it may be not. But when you're busily promoting and committing mass murder, I find it a little hard to take their word that they're not doing it. Thank you.
Although I have been very troubled by the revelations over the last 3 or 4 months, I wasn't planning on speaking today, but I'm kind of moved to do it from the degree of the vociferousness of the opposition to this bill. I've many times in here sat and listened to Representative Michaud use this quote from Dr. Martin Luther King: "The hottest place in hell is reserved for those who remain neutral in times of great moral conflict." And Dr. King also said, "The ultimate tragedy is not the oppression and cruelty by the bad people, but the silence over that by the good people." The first question which the priest and Levite was asked was, "If I stop to help this man, what will happen to me?" But the Good Samaritan reversed the question: "If I do not stop and help this man, what will happen to him?" He who passively accepts evil is as much involved in it as he who helps perpetuate it. He who accepts evil without protesting against it is really cooperating with it. History will have to record that the greatest tragedy of this period of social transition was not the strident clamor of the bad people, but the appalling silence of the good people. And I'm voting for this measure simply because I don't want to remain silent in the face of what I've seen. Now, we've heard here today what I've been thinking I have to label the "pay no attention to that man behind the curtain" defense. Heard every kind of thing up here argued except the actual bill. We've even heard, "You can't believe what you saw, believe what we're telling you you saw." And I saw a woman saying that they will maneuver the fetus, to use the favored term of the political correct crowd, the fetus, so that it can be brought out so we don't damage any of the parts we want to sell. That kind of thing is abhorrent. There's enough abhorrent in there that it should move us to action. And the idea that the films were edited, of course, for brevity they're edited, just like ESPN Sports Center edits the games to show the highlights.
Mr. Speaker, what purpose does the gentleman from Mecklenburg, Representative Bishop Price?
I wonder if Representative Blust would yield for a question.
Does the gentleman from Guilford yield to the gentleman from Mecklenburg?
I yield.
He yields.
Am I correct that the terminology used was to have a procedure that would be a little less crunchy?
I can't remember the exact words, but I cringed when I heard some of this stuff. And to try to deflect what's going on by saying these are edited would be like a Dallas Cowboy fan yesterday trying to say those 38 points, we might have seen 38 points put up on us by Atlanta, but those films were edited. Maybe we didn't really lose. The overall message of those videos was one of great tragedy and very abhorrent. And I don't think it's wrong for this body to stand up and say, we aren't going to allow that in North Carolina. So I'd urge you to vote for the motion to concur.